Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State High School and College Sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Jackson McCarty. And Jackson, happy first day of training camp for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Music to my ears.
Yes.
Music to my ears. We're, 40-ish days away from the NFL season?
Yeah, and I think it's 5 Saturdays from college football games returning, or it might be 4 now.
And I think 4 weeks from high school.
Yeah?
It's 4 or 5.
Hey.
Dude.
I'll take that.
You know what we are? We're back. We're so back.
Every week, more back than the last.
Dude, well, and just getting to preview the conferences right now has been my brain has just been doing an Irish jig for the last 2 weeks. You know, I'm just so happy to be where we're at right now.
Well, and it's fun for me right now because I wasn't expecting to also preview conferences.
Yes.
But here we are. And I was like, well, I did the Big 12 and we did the SEC. I might as well list the Big 10. You know, the ACC is going on right now too. I'm saving that for next week.
Do we have any notable schools in the Big 10 that people from Ohio might care about?
I mean, there's
Maryland.
Indiana.
No, but of course,
ACC powerhouse, Maryland. But yes, no, of course, Ohio State had the Big Ten Media Days in Las Vegas. I'm still upset about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As you should be. It's wrong.
As someone who went to a Big Ten Media Day in Chicago and went to a Big Ten women's tournament in Indianapolis, those are the only cities that we should have ever traveled to.
Correct. It's like putting, I don't know, a school from California in the ACC. It's just wrong.
Why would that be? I don't know. It's like putting a school in Texas, in North Texas.
It's like putting a Golden Bear in Myrtle Beach. It's just doesn't do the trick.
Bears versus Hurricanes, who will win? But yeah, first day happened on Tuesday. Ryan Day talked. There's been a couple little headlines coming out of that, so I'll go over that with you. All the football talk from that as well. And like I said, ACC Media Days is actually going on at the same time in Charlotte. I'll kind of recap that next week and talk a little bit about what Jeff Brom says, because he's going to be, I think it's Thursday. So I think even after this episode is out, he'll finally talk on stage and things like that. So we'll have that for next week. But I also have a great interview with the athletic director of Thomas More University, because the Saints are officially a Division II athletic program now.
Woo. It's exciting to see the region in college athletics growing. Like in KU, we've seen a pretty decent amount of success from them recently. We're not just reliant on Xavier and UC anymore.
No.
And so Thomas More, in this transition period, very interested to hear how that's going. And obviously, like you said, you got the chance to get some of those answers for us.
Yeah, so we will listen to that in a little bit. But it's like you said, you're doing your conference previews. We're in Ohio. We're going to be in Ohio until the first week of games. Who are we talking about this week?
All right, so I did mention to you guys last week, because you put me on the spot,
yes,
and had me make my selection, which I do appreciate, because I would have waited a minute before I did that. We are going to talk about the ECC and the SWOC. Very different outlooks for the top of these conferences. And so what I've done, kind of like we'll continue to do throughout this, I know Kentucky was a little bit of a weirder one because we just grabbed 4 teams from Kentucky and went with it. I'm going to take the top 2 teams that I think maybe have the most notable storyline, or that I think is going to be at the top of the conference by the end of the year, and we'll talk about those 2 from each conference moving forward.
Okay.
So why don't we start with the ECC?
And this is a team that that whenever somebody asks me, who's good in high school football, this is the one that I will always remember, because you talked about them every single week.
Yes, they are the Dallas Cowboys to my Stephen A. Smith.
Go ahead.
I have spent a tremendous amount of time, which I guess I probably should have used a team that Stephen A. Smith likes, but I have spent a tremendous amount of time waxing poetically about the Anderson Raptors, because last year it was the greatest show on turf. You know what I mean? It was a freak of nature showcase every single week, and I got the pleasure of seeing them multiple times in the playoffs and a couple times in the regular season. if you missed the headlines from last year, they went 15-1, lost in the state title game by 7 to Avon. It was so close, and they had fought through so many close games right prior to that against LaSalle, and I believe Big Walnut was the other one. But
yes,
head coach Evan Dreyer has done a fantastic job of establishing that he can build this team up even when they lose guys, and that, of course, is the proposition this year. Among their notable guys leaving, Justice Burnham, their quarterback, 4,100 pass yards last year. Darrell Turner, almost 1,300 rush yards. And then when you add Burnham in there, he had over 800. So it's just an absurd amount. 6,200
yards of offense.
Correct. Yeah, and that's still on the lighter side because those are rounded.
Yeah, those
numbers.
are rounded down. Yeah.
So it was it's like 62-80 if I eyeballed it correctly. It's absurd.
Yeah, that's that's video game numbers.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're and on top of that, their three best receivers or highest totaled receivers, which was we had Caden Peening and Trace Jalek was among that list. They're all graduating, and then on the defensive side, Owen Bergman, who had 88 tackles. Alex Stanyard, who had 9 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, and then defensive back Jayon Saunders, 5 interceptions. They're gone too. So a lot of the dudes that we talked about week in, week out on this podcast are no longer going to be making headlines. Or if they are, it's at universities across the country. It's not back home in the tri-state. Exactly. But I say all that to say there is still a lot of returning talent that gives me plenty of confidence in the Raptors to be a very good team this year. Notably, the quarterback position, you always do want to address that, and I think Owen Scalf is going to be the guy under center for them. We saw him, I don't know if you remember, but Anderson was up by like 50 a lot of the time, and so sometimes Owen Scalf will get some PT. Last year, he had 576 yards, 72.2% completion rate, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. Yeah, I mean,
that's not bad.
Now, granted, it's spot starter, or it's like third quarter, fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean it's the games where you can go, okay, well Justice can take a break and we'll give Owen some time,
but
figure out how things are working.
But if you're throwing at a 72% clip, 8 touchdowns to 1 pick,
even if it's just a quarter every other game or whatever.
Yeah, it functions well, and I'm interested to see how that all unfolds. Cooper Kathman, a receiver for him, had just shy of 30 catches, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's probably going to be wide receiver 1 this year.
Sure.
Naturally, when the 3 guys ahead of him graduate. Reed Baker, a linebacker over there, he's going to be a senior. He had 9 sacks last year, 15 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. Very, very crucial part to that. Brady Kuhn, the Air Force commit, 78 tackles, 5 sacks. And then Kamari Ty, Ace Alston. That cornerback duo is going to turn a lot of heads this year. I think that their pass defense is what I'm most excited about because that's 5 interceptions returning for them, and it's both sides locked down, showing out. Kamari is a senior. Ace Alston still just a junior.
Were the two of them like the primary
or
were they behind somebody
other than Jayon Saunders?
Okay.
That was kind of the 3. And I if I remember right, Ace Alston played slot a lot of the time and would cover that, but he should be able to bump out. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but this is all just off my memory.
Yeah.
So they should be locking down 1 and 2 on the outside and then letting another junior or a senior that didn't quite have the flashy stats that I didn't write down here to cover that slot now instead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Point to say, Anderson, while the expectation is not to talk about them as often as we did last year. Don't think that they're going away.
I mean, you're off the dome. You're not expecting another undefeated season.
No.
I say undefeated up until
up till the state title. I would say that probably regional finals, regional semis is what I'm looking at there because they are still probably a top 5 or 6 team in D2.
Okay.
But whenever it's a lot of guys that the big thing is I was personally witness to Justice Burnham having to fight for those very clutch moments at the end to push a lot of those games over the hump rather. I need to see that from Owen to know that they have that before I can really guarantee that.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously their natural competitor within the ECC, another team that we spent a lot of time on, a team that I have credited with having one of the best game day atmospheres in the tri-state. Because there's very few things that I love more on this earth than being at Winton Woods on a Friday night.
Yeah.
It is such a fun time. There is this energy in the building, or I guess on the field, of just like, we know how good we are, especially on defense, and we're coming for you. And so, Winton Woods, you have to include them on this list. Chad Murphy is a state champion. He won back in 2021. He also knows how to restock the shelves. And, I mean, their 2 losses were to 2 of the best teams in the tri-state. They lost to Anderson by 13 or 14, I believe. Okay. And then they lost to St. X 22-10. Unfortunately, was in the first round of the playoffs.
Yes.
So, and Chase Herbstreit, I believe, had a really good game that week. But, if you come out of a season 10-2 and you lose to, I believe St. X made it 2 or 3 more rounds, and then obviously Anderson, state title runner-up, I think you did pretty good for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and St. X is just one of those teams that you run into them and you got to be on top of your game.
Absolutely. Well, like if you look back at last year, I remember going in, and just to be honest, I remember being like, oh, Moeller's going to beat them by like 20.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it's Moeller, it's Ponatoski, it's Christian Harris, it's, all these freaks of nature that have proven to be fantastic at football.
Yes.
And then St. X took them to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, I did not have that on my bingo card.
This is a feistier team than you were expecting.
Yeah. Exactly, because St. X knows how to hang in there. So, like, it's by no means a disservice. It's just unfortunate as to where it fell in the season or into the playoff bracket. Yeah. But like I mentioned, the defense is the ringer. 8.5 points allowed per game last year. Unnatural. Yeah. Unnatural. Genuinely freaks me out every time I look at their schedule from last year, because I'm like, how did they have this many shutouts? How did they only allow 3 points 6 weeks in a row? It's just mind-boggling stuff. Yeah. But they do have a lot of notable grads. Okay. More specifically on the defensive side. We're going to see a lot of new faces over there.
Okay.
Landon Anderson. He contributed 55 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. Eric Morris, 5.5 sacks. DeLon Massey Wright, 7 sacks, 11.5 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. Justin Hill, he's going to be in Tuscaloosa, 8 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. And then Devon Kane, 8.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. So a ton of production, especially pass rushing production, moving on.
That's like 30 sacks graduating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you look down,
there's still more in the returning.
Which now granted it is only 2, unfortunately, but there's still some interesting pieces to it, especially because I have had the fortunate position for 2 years now of watching Bryshawn Brown grow into a quarterback. He is truly the first guy that sticks out in my mind that I got to go to. I've been to multiple Winton Woods games over the last couple of years, and I've seen his progression.
Yes.
I think that maybe last year wasn't exactly what he wanted. Sure. I think that there was a little bit left to be desired. I have a lot of confidence in him taking that step this year, because the offense is going to not have to be the focal point, but I think that there is a higher expectation on the offense this year than just rolling out there and being like, you can score 14 and be fine.
Well, and I'll say this. His stat line isn't bad.
No, it's not bad.
No. I'll run through it real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
1450 yards, passing yards, 60% completion, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 5 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
which is solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not up there. It's not the Anderson numbers.
Right. It's not Burnham.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But I think when you had a defense that was so rock in a hard place, type thing, you could get away with not scoring as much. Whereas it does feel like losing all of those defensive pieces, you're not going to get them immediately filled. It's not going to be the same defense it was last year. Mm-hmm. Does the offense need to step up then? And, does he need to be bumping that up to a 2,000-yard season?
I think so. I personally, if I was projecting here, I would say that my guess would be somewhere in the 2,600.
Okay.
Probably in like a 24-ish touchdown range. Hopefully he can keep the picks about where they are, but, higher volume. He might go up a couple picks. And then with his feet, I think if you can do another 5 rushing touchdowns, you're good. Sure. Just because I'm not real worried about Bryson Brown being a running threat. I know he can be. I've seen it. But, like, they are – I would argue that their strongest returning guy is Isaiah Garrett, their running back. Last year he had over 1,000 rush yards and 9 rushing touchdowns. And that was as a junior. He's coming back as a senior. We know these guys continue to grow and develop their game into their final year. So, honestly, Isaiah Garrett, I think, is going to be the workhorse for the team, especially for the offense. Hopefully, 1,400, 1,500 rushing yards. I don't think that's an unrealistic possibility. No. Because while I'll say the Winton Woods defense probably is not going to be scaring the quarterback as bad and as consistent as they did last year, I do still have a lot of confidence in them forcing turnovers, just because that's what Chad Murphy coaches into these guys. And you do have somebody like Rael Kelly returning. He had 2 interceptions last year. And then on the who I think might be the front man to replace some of that production, I do want to shout out Jalen Mercer. He had 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss last year. He's going to be what I assume is an every down guy. Okay. And I think we could see some pretty gaudy numbers out of him if camp and the early portions of the season go as well as I think they could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye on the Warriors for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm sure you'll end up with more games this year.
Yes. Yes. If I have any say in it, I will be at Winton Woods on a couple Friday nights.
Yes.
But all right, let's jump over to the SWOC, which is a tumultuous place right now, truthfully. It's only 4 teams. It's Harrison, it's Mount Healthy, it's Edgewood, it's Talawanda. And we've talked about Harrison and Mount Healthy a lot over the past year.
Yep.
On football side, we're going to do it again, but for 2 very different reasons. Okay. We'll start with Harrison. Yep. Because it is the sunnier disposition. They are 10-3, or they were 10-3 last year. Had an average of 37.5 points per game. Crazy numbers. Still under 20 points allowed. 19.9, just barely at that cut.
Just barely at the line.
But worth noting, Dickie Angle, their quarterback, and running back Cole Coops, who I think him and Josh Ringer from EC last year or 2 years ago, those are the 2 players that I've been like, this is not real.
Just freaks of nature type.
Horrifying to watch. I talked to Cole Coops before the Harrison Mount Healthy game last year. And I was just on the sideline before the thing, and I said, what do you think you'll have here today? And he said 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. You know what he had?
350, 4 touchdowns.
He had I think 189 and 3 touchdowns.
Okay, yeah.
It was a lot. And he opened the game with an 80-yard rushing touchdown. Yeah. Matter of fact, I will make sure
that I have that clip playing right now.
Yes. Because it is fantastic. It is, I think, my favorite shot of that year. It was just, I get beside myself because these games are so fun. But
it's all right.
But point being, ton of offensive production leaving.
Yes.
They do have a lot of very interesting names, including what I think is a top 5 defensive player in Ohio, or in our tri-state coming back.
Okay.
I'm really interested to see how he does, but we'll start with Josh Adelsberger, a receiver, 49 catches last year, 956 yards, which works out to 19.5 yards per catch.
Yeah.
Horrifying. 13 touchdowns. You combat that with Preston Flick, the running back, who I assume will take the bulk of snaps, 243 rush yards, 7.8 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. So these guys are just taking it in bunches.
Yeah. These guys have been ready for their shot.
Yeah. And
and Adelsberger.
Right. He already had it.
Yeah.
But, you sit behind Cole Coops, and it's like, well, I guess I'll do this senior year. But, Preston Flick, I think, is a genuine breakout candidate. Okay. I think that this time, not this time, but in 2.5 months from now, if I do some kind of all Ohio or all tri-state team kind of thing, or awards or something, I think Preston Flick is going to be a guy that a lot of people at the beginning of the year wouldn't have thought would be a candidate for it, but is.
Okay.
So shout out to him. I'm interested to see how he does. Logan White, the man I made mention of earlier, 83 tackles, 15.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. 15.5 sacks as a junior coming back, going to be the focal point. You know he'll get double teams, so you have to be tentative about if he's going to get back to that mark again. Mm-hmm. But I don't see any reason that he can't be one of the premier athletes, offense or defense, in the Tri-State this year.
Yeah. I was going to say that just already I'm like, oh, yeah, he's going to be good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. he's making the case easy on us. And then a couple more guys to round out the defensive outlook. Ben Markarian, 5 interceptions, 2 pick sixes last year. Dude's a ball hawk, so watch out.
Yeah.
And then Grant Dalio, 57 tackles, 6 sacks. It's a tremendous score.
Yeah, I was going to say a good compliment to White at that point.
It's a tremendous core. Harrison, I think, with the right amount of difficulty in the early portion of their schedule, I think this team could be a scarier one than what they got last year, and that's even losing Cole Coops. And the only reason I say that is because I feel like the defense with another year of growth could legitimately be in like a 13, 14 points per game region or points allowed per game. And even if that points per game comes down a bit, I still feel good about Adelsberger being able to make something happen after the play. Like I said, Preston Flick is a starting running back for a lot of teams. He would have been a multi-year starter for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Had he not been behind Cole Coops. So there's a lot that I'm putting a big star next to Harrison this year because I think we're in for something that's worth watching.
Okay. And then you have something that's worth watching on the other side just to see what comes next. It's, as I kind of said it's a little bit of, it's like Colerain.
Yeah.
Because it's impacted by Colerain.
Correct. It is a not a reverse Colerain situation. That is harsh.
Yeah.
But Mount Healthy's head coach, Jordan Stevens, is now a Cardinal.
Yes.
He departed the program, and I think the timing largely coincides with how many seniors he had because it's. And that's by no means an insult, but like I do see the natural progression of like when you have a bunch of guys that are graduating at the same time, that is your jumping off point because a new chapter is starting, and it's very much going to be a new chapter for the Owls. Last year they were 10-3, but now they are going to be led by former Loveland assistant coach A.J. Williams. He's going to be filling that spot, and truth be told, I don't have players to watch on this because there's not a whole lot of production returning.
Okay.
But we will quickly run through the names that you won't see.
Yes.
Jameer Spain, their quarterback, he graduated over 3,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. We talked about Jameer quite a bit last year. He would have been one of my top 5 quarterbacks in the Tri-State. Very impressive player. Ace Cooper, a receiver, he's now transferred to Middletown. He was a front man for him. Wide receiver / cornerback extraordinaire Jamer Scott. He had almost 900 receiving yards and 6 interceptions. He's now a Wisconsin Badger. One of the scariest players I remember seeing on defense last year, Rayshon Cotton. He graduated 11 sacks, 25 tackles for loss, 6 forced fumbles. And then so did defensive end Ty Watkins, who had 9.5 sacks, 14 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. So if you'll recall, whenever I did that list, that was the teams that I'm most interested in or the most curious storylines.
Yeah.
When we talked about Colerain, I didn't list the players to know because there's so much fluctuation.
Absolutely.
Same drill here. Very curious. I don't know much about A.J. Williams, just to be perfectly truthful. But I'm interested to see because I do think that there's still a pretty wide open gap for any of the SWOC teams to be number 2 this year and to be the competitive, or the competitor with Harrison moving forward. So I'm curious to see who kind of takes the bull by the horns because there's going to be at least 2 non-con games that aren't Harrison on each of their schedules to try to earn that spot to be second.
Yeah. And I was going to say I was kind of curious of who they will be playing first. And according to Max Preps, it's Hughes on the 29th.
Okay. I kind of like that. I like that opportunity for them. That's gonna be a really good that's a really good spot to be like showcasing the rough patches. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to figure out where they need to grow in that game. But we're also going to see a lot of the highlights and the stuff that you can feel good about early. So, the Owls, I'm certainly going to be keeping tabs on them. It's hard to say that the expectation is to talk about them as often as we did last year.
Of course.
Truthfully.
Yeah, I'm sure we will still talk about them.
Of course.
Especially after a few games and things like that. But I think it's good to kind of set that expectation moving forward as well.
Of course.
So, but here's a team that I'm looking forward to talking about more.
Talk about big changes.
Big changes, and as I've said sometimes that when we started this, my whole goal was to get attention to teams and players and universities and things like that don't always make the air.
Yes.
UC we usually have on every Saturday. We don't always have Miami on talking about football and things like that. And that's nothing against our sports team. Yeah. There's just a limit of how much time we have on the air that you can put on and things like that.
And we are in such a
sports-heavy market.
Deep sports market.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much talent and quality around us.
But one of the big changes that's happened for one of the local universities is Thomas More moving to Division II. Now, this has been a 3-year process for them, and it still is not technically official,
right? But
they have been accepted, and now they're just waiting for the date, and it's like a stamp. Okay. It's really how it is.
There you go.
But I got to talk with the athletic director, Terry Connor, get a little bit of insight into what was behind this move, how this has gone for them, and what they're looking forward to in the future. So let's go ahead and take a listen to that. After 3 years of provisional membership, Thomas More University has officially been accepted into the NCAA Division II and the Great Midwest Athletic Conference. Joining me now is University Vice President and Athletic Director Terry Connor. Terry, thank you for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brad. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you've been athletic director for 27 years now. There have been plenty of moves, whether it be to with the NAIA to Division III NCAA, back to NAIA, and now to Division II. What was the sign for you as an athletic director to go, the university is ready to make this step into Division II, and the kind of the process behind that for me?
Yeah, Brett, it's been interesting. So I played here, and when we were NAIA, and for all those years, I played here, and then we went to Division III right at the end of my career and the end of my father's coaching career. Mm-hmm. We were moving into Division III, and we were Division III for a long time, and it was a great place for us to be. We really enjoyed it. The conference we were in, that we ended up getting in later in Division III. When I was AD, and it was based up around Pittsburgh, the distances and everything just kind of, it got to be quite a bit. So we started looking, and we ended up going back to NAIA. We were that originally, and that conference throughout the state of Kentucky was appealing. So we looked at that. And, a lot of this stuff also is based with presidents and their preference of what they want to do. And we got a new president, Joe Chillo he was from up in Boston. He kind of asked me, he goes, "What is NAIA?" He wasn't very familiar with it from being up east. And so I was talking to him about it, and he just felt that it would be a better place for us to be in Division II. We knew the Great Midwest Conference was an outstanding private school conference. And those schools that we're in with fit our mission, fit our values of what Thomas More is. So we looked at that, and we looked at it and decided that we thought that would be a really good fit for us. And so we started exploring it, and Tom Dagger and Leslie Schumann from the Great Midwest Conference were just really open to us and really helped us out. And then the ADs and presidents looked at Thomas More and thought it'd be a great fit. And from there, things just kind of took off, and we started that process. And it's been a great process. It's been an exhausting process. There's a lot of paperwork with the NCAA, but they were helpful and did a great job with us. And so we moved right in, and now we're full members, and it becomes, I guess, official September 1st. We're in, but I guess the official date is September 1. But so we're excited. We can't wait to be there. the Great Midwest Division II competition for the last 2 years. So, this will be our first year where our kids we're if we win a championship or get an automatic or get some type of bid to the NCAA, we can compete in the postseason now. So really exciting, and it's an exciting time for us. And I think it's a great fit because we're the only Division II in Greater Cincinnati region. So the closest one south is down in Owensboro, and the closest one north is up in Columbus. So I think it's a great opportunity for Thomas More, and a great opportunity for the young men and ladies of the Greater Cincinnati area to come play Division II sports at a local school.
And when you mention location and things like that, being right in northern Kentucky, southwest Ohio, where Thomas More is, you kind of do complete the map of Ohio for the conference in a way. I know that Tiffin, the University of Tiffin and Findlay are also included, as you mentioned, Columbus, and really the farthest your teams have to travel now is up into Michigan.
Correct. Up in Northwood, Michigan is probably the furthest, and Hillsdale up Michigan. So, I don't know that baseball and softball like it a whole lot. A little chilly up there, but it's not too bad.
You can invite them on down in the early months, exactly, and then wait until May or whatever. Yeah. Of course, that has always been one thing too with some of the larger conferences like the Big Ten, where you watch Rutgers travel all the way over to UCLA and things like that. So I understand. I can totally understand why this makes the most sense from just a logistical point for the
the geographical standpoint is really good for us. It's like I said, it's a great fit. It's a great match. We give that little bit of a bridge for Kentucky Wesleyan coming all the way up north to those schools. That's a long trip for them. So we kind of put a link in there where they're not so separated. So I think that's a good link for us to be. And like you said, those schools and through Michigan, right down through Ohio, and dip right into Northern Kentucky. So I think it is a really good fit. And like I said, a lot of good schools, a lot of good people, and I think it's going to be a great place for us for years to come.
And so, as you mentioned, you're now eligible for postseason tournaments, play, things like that. What other kind of changes or benefits come from this shift of being under the NCAA's umbrella rather than being an NAIA?
I think there's a lot of different opportunities. One, everybody recognizes the blue disc of the NCAA, right? It's a great marketing tool. So I think that's a big piece of it. Our kids being eligible for postgraduate scholarships and things like that. In today's, the big thing is the transfer portal, and they have the access to the transfer portal and that kind of stuff. Kids, that we bring in, or kids that think there's a better fit elsewhere, or whatever. So it's reality in today's world. You either got to embrace it or you got to fight it, and it's not something you can really fight anymore. So it's 10 years ago, you would never heard of that, but now it's reality. So you have to embrace that piece of it, and that's what we're going to do and run with it. And so I think those things with what the NCAA offers, and that I think it's just it's a really neat experience for our young athletes to be able to do and be a part of, and that. And like I said, being the only D2 in Greater Cincinnati, it's pretty neat for them to be able to experience.
And as you bring up the transfer portal and things like that, you're in a good spot to obviously bring in athletes that want to be Saints for all 4 years, but also ones who might go, oh, I want a couple years with this coach to learn and grow, and they might exceed even what they're expecting and be able to make a jump up to a Division I and things like that.
Yeah, and we've had numerous kids already that have come here, had a great freshman year, great freshman and sophomore year, and then decided to make that jump and go to Division I and that. And hey, you know what? If they're good enough to do that, and the Division I wants to pay them to do that, then that's really hard you can't really argue against that, So that does happen, and again, you've got to look at that, and we're just going to continue to work hard and see the kids we can develop. And there's a lot of kids that go away to school and then decide, you know what, I'm going to come back home and play in front of mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and that. And then they come back and they transfer back in and really enjoy their experience. So I think our location lends itself to both of those things. They can play in front of mom and dad for a year or two, and then maybe they're good enough to get that major Division I opportunity. And but then we've got that opportunity to bring kids back home who went that Division I route out of high school and thought, this isn't me, this isn't what it's cracked up to be, and came back to us in the greater Cincinnati area to play in front of family and friends. So we've kind of hit both roads, and it's it's fun to watch the perspective and see kids excel in what they do and what they enjoy. And that's a big piece of it. And the one thing you have to watch with the transfer portal is the academic piece that people don't always talk about. And when you transfer, you're going to lose credits, right? When you go from one school to the other. So, what is your graduation timeline? Do you want to be out in 4, or do you want to be out in 5 or 6? So, we want our kids to come here, and we want them to graduate in 4 years and get the degree they want, because most of them aren't going professional. You'll get a couple here and there, but most of them aren't. And so, you want them to get that degree they want and get out in the workforce and do what they were born to do. And that's what we try and focus on here on the academic side of things.
I feel like I bring up the reference of the hundreds of thousands of NCAA athletes every year, and not all of them are going pro commercials that I would always grow up with. That's right. burned in here. But
yeah.
But you've mentioned that the transfer portal is just a new part of college athletics. Obviously, another part of that is name, image, and likeness and compensation and things like that. It's my understanding that D2 players are eligible to work with that and things like that. With Thomas More, are you guys trying to help facilitate athletes with different deals and things like that, or what has been your approach to it so far?
So we don't the Division IIs I'm talking to, they're not going out trying to get deals for kids to be able to do those things. Sure. We have a couple opportunities for student athletes to be able to do where you can buy gear with their name on it, those type of things from a third party vendor, and then they can get money back from those type of things. There's you're eating at a certain restaurant and you're putting it on your social media because you have so many followers that they get free meals and those type of things. So there's opportunities for student athletes out there to do that, but they need to go work to find those on their own. We're not gonna we're not going out finding opportunities for them. If we have somebody that comes in and says, "Hey, I'd like a student athlete that does this, it represents this," then we may be able to connect that student athlete to them. But that stuff is few and far between on our level in that. And Division II, I think is I think some schools are starting to get into that game a little bit more. Some of the larger Division IIs that may have staff and things like that, the big public schools that can do that. But for the most part, I don't think many are getting too deep into that right now. And I think that should be left to the student athlete to be able to find. I certainly don't want to get into having collectives and those type of things, and that it's to me that's not what we're about. We're about you want a degree and you want to become a nurse, you want to be pre-med, and now you want to get out in the business world. Here's a great place where you get a degree and get out there and do those things, and that's where our focus needs to remain, and be who we are, and that's what Thomas More is.
You kind of, the way you talk about it reminds me a little bit of how I felt it was when NIL kind of started, where I got my start covering volleyball at Purdue University, and so I was still following a lot of players that after I graduated, things like that. And one of the first things I started seeing was them, posting here's a energy drink
right.
sponsorship type thing, or here's a local restaurant or local gym. And I've always said like those are the things that needed to be allowed in a way. But obviously everything especially at football at the higher level is, mess. And
Yeah, things just kind of took off on a different level, and I agree with you. If we're selling a jersey with a kid's name on it, that kid should get some money for it.
Yeah.
To get some compensation. If that kid's being used in a commercial, they should get some compensation for it. But to just flat out pay people in that, I don't understand that. I don't, and like you said, if I'm holding up that energy drink, or some dentist just put me on a billboard because the player has a great smile, then great, you can get compensated for that. But some of the other things I don't agree with. But I think the way the NIL was originally intended, when the NCAA first came out with it, I think that's what it should have been. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's all different now.
And it's as I've said in some other episodes, it's going to keep changing. Absolutely. Every so many months. So, the one more thing that I wanted to really kind of touch on, in a way, continues off the a little bit of the online side of things. The GMAC just announced a new 5-year partnership with Flow Sports to be able to live stream regular season and postseason games. For the university coming in as this is going on, to be able to get the athletes in front of more eyes, not just, in the community, not just in the Ohio region, but for people to be able to watch these games nationally. How exciting is that? What does that, mean to you guys?
I think I think we've always streamed our games, and people watch them and that kind of stuff. Now being on a part of Flow Sports, it goes behind a paywall, so that's a little bit different. But in the same breath, when you subscribe, you get all of these schools, all of these conferences that are under Flow Sports. There's a lot of the lower level Division I conferences that are with Flow. There's a lot of D2 conferences. I think they're up to 8 now that have joined this Flow Sports. And there's Division III conferences that have joined it. So, and I've even seen the high schools on there. So, I think it's a great thing for us, because I think people are, they're going to be on there anyway. They're going to be streaming it, and they're going to be looking through and say, oh, hey, what's this? Thomas More, who's that? And then get on there and look and see, oh, okay. And like you said, our alums that are, all over the country and all over the world and that kind of stuff, that can get on that Flow Sports and see that. I think it's going to be a pretty neat thing for us to be able to be a part of. And I think it was a great job with Tom Dager and the conference and Leslie Schumann that negotiated that contract and got us on there, and the president's, supporting that. So I think it's going to be a pretty neat thing. We'll have to up our game a little bit in streaming, I think. So we're going to have to find out what we're good at and what we're bad at now. That might be a good thing or might be a bad thing, I guess, but we'll figure it out.
Change always brings a little bit of ingenuity with it, as I always say.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. Is there anything else that you want to add heading into this academic year that I haven't mentioned?
I think it's a great opportunity for Thomas More. We've got some great things going on here, and just opened our new academic building last year, and we got some really neat things going on. And so I think the opportunity for us to be Division II, be the only Division II in the greater Cincinnati region, I think is just another feather in our cap, and what we're trying to do here at Thomas More, and continue to move forward with what we're doing. And I really appreciate you having me on and taking time out of your day to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Terry. We'll send it back into me and Jackson.
All right. So obviously they have been playing Division II games for a couple of years now.
Yes.
But now it's official. They're going for those postseason games and things like that, trying to make it and make a play at the NCAA tournaments and things like that, which I think is really exciting. And so you can watch Division II football, the only Division II football team in the tri-state. They will be kicking off against Southern Illinois University. They're in Illinois at Saluki Stadium.
Okay.
Their first home game is going to be October 4th versus Lake Erie College. But they're also playing Dayton on September 6th. That's a short drive if you want to go to a game. And then also the University of Findlay, which is about 2 hours.
Yeah, that's
Give
super
or take some change. So, yeah, like you kind of said to me, you know, you have more of the Ohio area within the conference that makes it a lot easier to travel to games and things like that.
100%.
So, but speaking of the Ohio area, you love my segues. It's okay. As we kind of mentioned at the top, it is Big Ten Media Days. Included in that is Ohio State. The Ohio State. And the Buckeyes were out there. Ryan Day was joined by Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith. I'll be really honest.
Sonny Styles is an awesome name.
Yes. I also like all their names, but Sonny Styles is a great name. I don't think that Ryan really had a lot to say yesterday.
No.
It's
well, you're afforded that when you're a national champion.
Exactly. And obviously they want to be the first Big Ten back-to-back since 1941, if I'm not mistaken. And the thing that he said that I was like, oh, well, that's scary, is Jeremiah Smith is bigger, stronger, and faster than last year.
That's possible.
And I was like, and in my head, I was like, well, I did see that Marvin Harrison Jr. is massive now.
Yeah.
If you saw those Arizona Cardinal photos, I was like, he's a sophomore.
Brian Hartline has him on their Wheaties.
Yeah, he's on the protein Wheaties.
Yes. With whey sprinkled on top of it.
And a can of tuna mixed in. But Smith was already scary last year.
Yes.
If he's going to be scarier,
he's just going to be Megatron in a Buckeyes uniform.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I think it's funny because it feels like he's just going down the same Harrison Jr. Track without having the last name of Harrison.
Yeah, without
the first name of Marvin, where people were like, "Oh, we need to defend that receiver."
Yes, literally.
And so I think that's going to be a huge threat for Ohio State. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how getting a new quarterback in. I know it was a grad transfer, if I'm not mistaken, who's going to be the starter, whose name leaves me at the moment.
Is it Julian Sayin? I thought was going to be.
Was it?
I thought Julian Sayin was getting the nod.
Well, they had the three-way battle. Day said to. No, you're right. Why did I think it was a transfer? But it's
I don't know.
Julia Sayin against Lincoln Keenholz and Tavian St. Clair are all looking for the starting job. And Sayin was the top-rated quarterback in the 2024 class.
Yeah.
But signed with Alabama, went to Ohio State once Saban retired.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Much like Caleb Downs.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense to me to have him just start getting that time in. But I started listening a little bit earlier. There's been a lot of talk about college football playoff stuff. Also a little bit of NIL. I thought it was interesting. Michael Locksley with Maryland was talking about that he lost his locker room last year and very specifically pointed out, he's like, for the first time in my career, I have players where I have haves and I have have-nots. And that was like brutal to team chemistry and things like that.
Yeah. I believe that.
And at the core of it, to me, goes, okay, well, that is somewhat of what the settlement should help stop, because with the school actually paying players for their likenesses and things like that, you're going to see more like equitable matching what's being done on the field, things like that,
right?
And outside of it, that there's actually a structure to it, rather than just, oh yeah, this guy got this good deal and this guy didn't.
Yeah. And yeah, the jealousy and the whatever, like, because it's all based on market valuation.
Yeah, exactly, and that's still kind of getting figured out at this point.
And especially because, like, I'm only going to use him as an example.
Go for it.
Because it is the first one that pops in my mind, because we've talked about him a lot at the station. Shamar Stewart, last year at A&M.
Yes.
his numbers were not gaudy.
No.
So he would have had a lower valuation, even though he is a high
Value.
reward guy.
Yes.
The ceiling is what you're bidding on, not the floor. And so, I wonder how that impacts those athletes and if that causes rifts in those specific instances.
That is a very true. That's a very good point, and I think it also kind of brings up that question of the guys that have traditionally been the walk-ons to get those spots and things like that. But it also kind of encourages the athletes to do more on the field,
right?
And
turn up your production.
Get that reflected off of it. So
if you want to get paid for what you could be, go to the NFL and sign
Absolutely.
a contract.
And then the other one that I listened to was Matt Rule with Nebraska. Cincinnati will be playing them at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City to start off the year. Should have been at Lucas Oil, but
what a neutral site
over there. Yep. I mean, it's funny because both really weren't neutral in a way.
No, I mean they're very one way or the other. But
and that's why I was like, okay. I mean, I get it.
The neutral site would just be St. Louis, right?
Actually, yeah, or yeah. I think it would be St. Louis. I think it would be St. Louis because you have to go across the state from Kansas City, and
right.
you gotta go across 2 states for Indiana.
Yeah.
But he said that Dylan Raiola has been leading older players than himself, and it's shown a lot of strength, and he seems to be doing better on the field. So I do think that is going to be something that the Bearcats are going to need to stop early, is letting Raiola to start padding his numbers at the first game of the season, arguably. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and especially because the first year for Raiola was this is what college football looks like. Mm-hmm. This year is where the blue chip stuff starts to seep in.
Yes.
If he is as good as the recruiters and the 24/7 and Rivals and those places seem to think he was, this is where you see it.
Yes.
And so UC will be on the front line of that. And so I am curious as to how he all pieces it together, because we're also in year 3 for Matt Rule, which is traditionally where his programs ramp up and become 19-win programs.
Yes. And then it's also kind of the, not the do or die, but the time where everybody's looking at Coach Satterfield with UC and going, are you going to kick this into gear or not?
Yeah.
As well, so it's kind of the game of which team is going to kick off their season better.
Yeah, which narrative is going to be closer to fulfilled by the end of week 1?
Yeah, exactly. And then the big thing that's been coming out of the Big Ten media days is everyone is asking about the college football playoff, because as you may know, they're hoping there's been proposals to up it to 16 teams.
Yes.
But that needs confirmation from all of the conferences. And there are 2 that have been very outspoken about how they want the 16 to be stacked, if that's going to happen.
Who would those be?
One of them is the Big Ten, one of them is the SEC. Surprise, surprise.
Those 2 want a bigger piece of the pie?
I'll say this. The other conferences are also outspoken about not wanting it to be the way that the Big Ten and the SEC are kind of promoting it.
Because the SEC and Big Ten don't want to invite all the rest of them to the party.
Yes. Because the easiest one I say easiest, the one has been thrown around a lot is 5+11 format. 5 conference champions, Big Ten, Big 12, ACC, SEC, and then the group of 5.
Yes.
And then you have 11 at-large bids. What the Big Ten has thrown around is the 4-4-2-2-1. And that is 4 automatic qualifiers to the SEC and the Big Ten each.
Yes.
2 each to the ACC and the Big 12. And then 1 to the highest-ranked group of 6 champion and 3 at-large selections.
Yeah.
Which could end up being 5 SEC schools.
Could
5.
be 6.
5 Big Ten schools.
So I get it from the SEC and Big Ten perspective, because that is way better for their media rights.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
That is such a promotion of listen, if you want us on your TV, you got to know that you're going to get at least 4 teams that are going to be playing postseason ball. That's how people are going to want to see this. If your conferences are that much more dominant, why not just roll with the at-larges and get those 4 or 5 spots anyways.
Exactly. Now, here is the thing, and what it really comes down to, I think, is like fan reaction.
Yeah.
Because if you do the Big Ten's model, top 4 SEC teams, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, they're in. Maybe the 4th team's not that impressive.
Yeah, I mean, last year, it would have been whoever of Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee that
it would have been
no, it would have been Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, and then Bama or Ole Miss, who both missed the playoffs.
Which I think Bama was in the list.
Right. Or
as-
South
as it
Carolina,
would have been.
I guess. Because South Carolina, they were all 9-win teams. Or, yeah.
Yes. I think it was they were giving Bama the line
Or 10 wins.
or like the up whatever.
Yeah.
Or like in the CFP ranking list, it would have been a Bama.
Yes.
But it had to go to Clemson instead because the
Boise,
space
yeah.
the space had to go to Clemson, who was lower and things like that.
Right.
Big Ten would have been Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
Okay.
Normal.
Fine.
Expected.
And it really kind of comes down to just like you're adding 3 more at-large bids in a way.
Yeah.
And or I guess a 4th, because there was no second Big 10 or Big 12 rep, right? It was
Right. It was just Arizona State.
Yeah.
Is that right?
This is why we should look
SMU.
these things up, and
SMU was in it.
that's an ACC school.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. It was because the rankings at Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame keeps throwing me off. That's
they're
what it is.
non-con. Yeah, they're independent.
Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana, Boise State, SMU. Alabama was ranked 11th.
Yes.
But you had to jump them because you didn't have
You had 2 ACC schools.
because Clemson won the ACC.
Right.
That's what it was. And so they get the conference winner spot. Arizona State gets the Big 12 spot. And because SMU was 11-2. But
Yeah.
they lost to Clemson. In
And
the
people were not
championship game.
pumped that SMU made it over Bama. That's what it was.
Yes, correct.
Well, people, SEC fans.
Alabama fans.
Correct.
Well,
and SEC fans. SEC
SEC
fans get
as
so defensive of their own. It's so weird because they
Uh,
do not like these other teams, but they're like, but they should be there. It's like,
I don't. So the big argument that Tony Petitti, who is the Big Ten commissioner, was the word I was looking for, was saying is that but if you do the 5 and 11, you're just adding more variables to the CFP playoff selection committee.
sure.
If you do the 4-4-2-1 2-2-1, like you just go, oh, here's the list, and then it's just 3 at-larges, and you go, okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
I see his point, and I think here's the thing. You mentioned that it's the Big Ten and the SEC's media things. It's also the CFP's media things.
Yes.
Because
Those
to
are the
me,
brands.
that 5 and 11, ESPN has pretty much full control of bowl season, with college football playoffs and things like that. ESPN wants to make it into more of a tournament, make it more of an event. That's why they have the selection show like they do and things like that.
Yeah.
Which it's not necessarily a bad thing. The big thing that I've keep seeing people talk about this week is why do we even need a champion at the end of the year? Which is
What?
why? Because the national championship game hasn't been around forever.
No.
There were many years before where the whole point was basically you win your conference and then we have exhibition games and you can kind of go, oh, well, this team, that's why there's so many national championships claimed from different teams for like the same year.
Right.
Things like that. And it was decided by media or it was decided by this. And there's this.
Because we're not soccer. It's not a table standing situation.
Sure. But there's always at the end of the day this argument of like, you even look at BCS where they were like, well, if you only pick the 2 teams, what if number 3 could have beat number 2?
Right.
Okay, like then we did the 14 playoff. And like, well, what if number 5 would beat number 3?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
It's like how far out do we?
How many do we
expand
need to
in
keep
this?
going? This?
Right.
I don't hate 16.
No,
I don't
either.
hate 12. I think once you get beyond that, you're just running the NFL playoffs.
Right.
And is that really what college football needs? Because you're already losing more of the bowl game excitement in a way.
Yeah, but now the bowl game, like I don't this playoff system and like adding 4 or going to 16, that doesn't take away any of my bowl excitement, because now it just means that those bowl games have more meaning to me, because it's like they are still fighting to be the national champion.
What about the bowls that aren't in those?
Yeah, but like those have always been like that. Like it's a fun thing to watch, but like ultimately it is just like it's a fireworks show.
Sure. I just think I think about like the Music City Bowl.
Yeah. No, totally fair.
Purdue beat Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And that was a down to the yes, I did pick that game specifically. Yeah. But that was a down to the wire game. Mm-hmm. That was arguably more exciting than some of the college playoff games that year.
Yeah.
But what does it really mean besides to the fans to the people that are fans of the Boilermakers, fans of the Volunteers, and the psychopaths like me who are like, I want to watch every single game that is on air. Mm-hmm. What ways can we make that more enjoyable? And I think that's why things like the Pop-Tart Bowl have benefits now.
And that's how you do it. Like you have to create fan connection. The fan connection is not just automatic, but still, like I would argue that 6 years ago, a fantastic bowl game between 2 8-4 teams, and then the national championship game, or going all the way back to the BCS, 2 8-4 games playing in a bowl game versus the BCS national championship game. That 8-4 game did not have that much meaning. It just had more eyeballs.
Sure.
Because like now people are more drawn to like, oh, I can just watch the playoff format and whatever. But like they were always going to do that.
Sure.
Since we've gone to 4. They just watch those 3 bowl games and they call it. Mm-hmm. Or then on 12, they just watch those 6 bowl games and then call it. You're still like for the actual hardcore fans that want every last bit of football before it goes away, that meaning is still there.
Sure. The one thing that I thought about too was I think the things that do suffer are like the Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl.
Because you don't know the difference, and there is no difference. It's just a locale.
Yeah, my first memory of watching college football is the Miami Hurricanes playing Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl and the overtime win and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I remember because I watched it with my grandparents while my parents were on a trip and things like that. But that was a memorable moment, and and maybe it's just because maybe this is me dealing with therapy in a healthy way.
Athletic therapy.
But like I worry that there's not those moments for the younger generations and things like that to get them sucked into wanting to support teams and wanting to support it, athletics and things like that.
I hope that with the expansion, ESPN and and Fox and like these production companies take note of how same all of these look and start to amp up the broadcast because really that's the difference. It's because everybody's the score bug looks the same and it's all the same commercials and it's very similar sounding commentary. And like ultimately, is it now a cog in the playoff chase? Yes, but make it feel like you had to pull off this big achievement. You went to the Rose Bowl and won to continue your season. We need the investment can't really come from the higher ups because they're not the ones who control how it's broadcast.
Sure. Yeah. It's two sides where it's those classic historic games. They won the Rose Bowl. Yeah. They're moving on. They're doing this, and also they won the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Coach is getting dunked. Let's dip an Oreo in mayo.
Correct.
So.
And let's pop a human in a Pop-Tart thing in a toaster and see what happens.
It's what dreams are made of, Jackson. Well, I think that is a good way to end that discussion until closer to December.
I would agree.
So
I would agree.
Thank you all for watching and listening this week. As always, you can subscribe to the FOX19 Fox19 Sports page, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. And then, of course, the Fox19 Now Sports app, Fox19 website, Fox19 Now YouTube page has the video versions if you want to watch the highlights and things like that, especially once we start getting closer into the season and we're actually not recapping games, but previewing games.
And
you kind of, if you didn't catch it on the Friday or Saturday night, you can see some clips through that, and that's, I think, always a fun way of doing it. So.
Absolutely.
But thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one.